It's 11:30 p.m., or maybe it's 2 a.m. The lights are out. The house is locked. You are theoretically ready for the sweet release of unconsciousness. But before you even consider closing your eyes, there is a very specific, almost ritualistic task you must perform. Maybe you reach for the remote and turn on that one specific sitcom you've seen 40 times, just low enough so the dialogue is a blur. Maybe you open an app to the sound of rain, but not the violent rain, the cozy rain, the one where you can imagine the window pane separating you from the storm. Or maybe, quite simply, it's the box fan. The loyal, whirring box fan that points directly away from you, yet must be set to speed setting number 2. Without this sonic blanket, this blanket of sound, you know one terrifying truth: you are not going to sleep. And when you tell people this, when you mention that you can't sleep in total silence, they often look at you like you've broken a law of nature. They say things like, "Oh, I need it pitch black and dead quiet." They might worry about you. They might even call it a crutch. We are told constantly that silence is the gateway to peace, that stillness is the key to rest. So why does total silence feel less like peace and more like an echo chamber, designed specifically to amplify your deepest anxieties? Why does the absence of noise feel so profoundly noisy? If you are one of the millions of people who cannot drift off without that background buzz, you aren't broken. Your brain isn't malfunctioning. In fact, your brain is doing something incredibly sophisticated. And today, I want to show you exactly why. When we strip away the judgment, your need for background noise generally boils down to 3 core components: the physics of sound masking, the architecture of cognitive engagement, and your brain's primary directive, which is vigilance. Let's start with the most obvious reason, the one we talk about first, because it's the most logical. Let's talk about the mask. Your brain never actually goes to sleep. We call it resting, but that's a marketing lie. Parts of your brain are always working, always standing guard. Imagine your hearing as the bouncer at the door of a VIP club, and the club is your consciousness. The problem isn't the volume of the noises trying to get in. The problem is the dynamic range. It's the contrast. If you are sleeping in a perfectly silent room, that room is a blank canvas. If a pin drops, you will hear it. If the floorboard creaks as your house inevitably settling, you hear it. If a car drives by, your brain goes, "Alert! Potential predator/threat/pizza delivery for the neighbors." These sounds, while physically quiet, become psychologically deafening, because they stand against a background of 0. Your brain, the hypervigilant protector it is, must immediately evaluate these sounds. Is that creak the wind, or is it someone breaking in to steal the leftover lasagna? The process of constant evaluation, even if you are semi-conscious, completely destroys sleep continuity. You never reach the deep, restorative stages, because you are perpetually in a light, alert phase. This is where your white noise, or more accurately, your color noise, pink or brown noise, comes in. Background noise is not, as you might think, adding noise to the room. It is subtracting the contrast. Let's look at white noise. White noise is just a term for sound that contains all frequencies across the spectrum of human hearing, in equal measure. It's like light. When you have all colors of light, you get white. When you have all frequencies of sound, you get a rushing, staticky noise. A box fan is a magnificent mechanical generator of pink and brown noise. Batsir noises that emphasize lower frequencies. This steady, predictable stream of sound acts as a massive acoustic fog. When that fog is in place, the sharp, annoying, sleep-shattering peaks the floor creaking, the neighbor closing their car door, the cat knocking over a lamp, they get swallowed up. They are still there, but they no longer rise high enough above the baseline to trigger the brain's alarm bell. The bouncer at the door isn't evaluating every little footstep anymore. He can't hear them over the pleasant rolling buzz of the crowd. The noise provides safety by making the world predictable. It is a sonic force field against the unexpected. But let's be honest with ourselves for a second. Is your box fan just about blocking out the neighbor's loud coughing? Probably not. Often, the noises we are most afraid of, the ones that truly keep us awake, aren't coming from outside the house. They are coming from inside the house, of our own minds. This brings us to the second and, I think, much deeper psychological explanation: cognitive engagement, or what I like to call busy work for your internal monologue. Think about your daytime brain. During the day, you have 1,000 small things occupying your attention. You are driving, checking emails, listening to podcasts, doom scrolling, making dinner, talking. The internal dialogue, that voice in your head that loves to review your mistakes. It exists, but it's competing with the entire outside world. It has to wait in line. And then you turn the lights off. You remove every distraction. In that perfect, pristine silence, the competition disappears. It is just you and the void. And the void is a perfect microphone for your anxieties. Suddenly, your brain looks around and goes, "Oh, finally, some peace and quiet." Now let's review everything awkward you said to your boss in 2017. Also, do we have enough money for retirement? And did you remember to lock the back door? I know you checked it twice, but did you check it with authority? Silence is a Rorschach test for our anxieties. It is an empty space that your mind feels compelled to fill, and it almost always fills it with rumination. The brain hates cognitive idle time. It needs a task. It is like an overly energetic puppy that, if left alone for 10 seconds, will destroy the couch. If you don't give your brain a small task, it will go and tear up your peace of mind. This is why turning on a familiar TV show or a podcast about ancient history is so effective. It's not about watching the content. It's about creating just enough non-stressful cognitive engagement to keep that internal monologue from starting its destructive engine. You aren't deeply listening to The Office. You're using Michael Scott's voice as a gentle anchor. It occupies maybe 10% or 15% of your brain's processing power. Why and so, just enough to say, the puppy is playing with its chew toy, and allow the other 85% to actually drift off to sleep. The sound doesn't force you to think about anything stressful. It actively stops you from thinking about everything stressful. You are using external noise to drown out the devastating internal noise. We must also respect the emotional, historical, and perhaps even evolutionary roots of this habit. Why does noise, even loud noise, feel more like a sanctuary than a threat? To understand this, we have to look back, both at our individual histories and our collective ancestral past. Consider for a moment an animal in the wild. If it is sitting in an environment that is totally silent, that animal isn't peaceful. That animal is terrified. In nature, absolute silence is rarely a sign of safety. It usually means the birds have stopped singing and the crickets have stopped chirping because a predator is nearby. Silence is the signal that vigilance must be maximized. Noise, the rushing river, the rustling wind, the general background chatter of life. That is the signature of safety. It means life is proceeding as normal, and no tigers are actively stalking you. We inherited this neurological programming. Total silence, even in a comfortable 21st century bedroom, triggers a subtle, ancient signal that says, "Listen closer. Something isn't right." On a more personal level, many of us connect sound with childhood, family, and comfort. Maybe you grew up in a busy household where the sound of your parents in the other room, or the washing machine humming, or the television murmuring, was the sound that accompanied you to sleep. That noise was the proof that you were not alone, that the protectors were close. You may have conditioned your brain over years of repetition. Silence, in contrast, may feel like isolation. And isolation is fundamentally an anxious state for a social species like humans. The hum of a machine, the voice in a podcast, it isn't just noise, it is acoustic company. It is a simulation of presence that tricks your nervous system into believing you are safe in your pack, even when you are alone. And finally, we have to touch briefly on the physical, the one explanation we sometimes forget. For many, many people, silence is a lie. If you have tinnitus, a ringing, buzzing, or hissing in the ears that only you can hear, you know that silence is, physically, the loudest and most annoying environment imaginable. When a room is quiet, the auditory nerve, which may be slightly damaged or misfiring, seems to amplify this internal phantom sound. It's like trying to sleep while a smoke detector is low on battery, chirping somewhere in the distance, except it's inside your head. For a person with tinnitus, an external sound, like a white noise machine or a fan, isn't a preference. It is a clinical necessity. They are using an external sound to overpower an internal distressing one. This isn't a crutch. It is auditory triage. So, the next time someone comments on your fan, or the sound of simulated rain, or your need to fall asleep to a documentary about medieval plumbing, I want you to remember this. Your brain isn't strange. Your brain is resourceful. It is an extremely intelligent biological system that has figured out how to create its own safety protocols. You are using sound to build a defensive wall against the unexpected world outside. You are using sound to create a pleasant distraction for your overactive internal monologue. You are satisfying ancient instincts that link ambient noise to social comfort and safety from predators. And in some cases, You are simply trying to cover up a noise that silence itself magnifies. Understanding why you do this is the first step in realizing it isn't a flaw to be fixed. It's a strategy to be respected. The world is a loud, chaotic, often overwhelming place, and our minds are rarely quiet even when the world is. So, if setting a mechanical fan to setting number 2, pointing it at the wall, and letting its low-frequency buzz wash over you is the tool you need to find that precious, elusive state of peace, then by all means use that tool. Sleep well.